We're back to the Neil Haley Show, and I'm excited first to welcome my co-host, Paul Hollis, author of the Hollow Man series, CEO of Seniors Publishing and Hollow Man Publishing. How are you, Paul? Well, who's our guest today?
I'm doing great, and we have a special guest today, Patrick O'Hearn. He is not only an author, but he's a freelance editor, which is also helpful to all authors, and he is a literary consultant. So, welcome, Patrick.
Hey, thank you for having me.
So tell me how the whole started with writing books. Like, how'd that start with you?
Yeah, so I started writing books, felt inspired. Actually, my wife and I had a series of miscarriages. And so in that suffering, I was trying to look for resources. And that's when the Lord put on my heart to write my first book, Nursery of Heaven. And then I have another book behind me coming out this fall called The Grief of Dads. And I haven't seen a book in terms of in the Catholic Christian market for a book just specifically for fathers who have lost a child at all stages, from miscarriage to suicide. So this book has all stories in there.
Wow. And so kind of the first book made you want to write the second, it sounds like?
Yeah, I did. And, it's funny. I felt like I always had this gift, writing, but I didn't know how to do, how to write well. I didn't have the greatest teachers, and I would say English teachers. And then even I always joke, like my parents would help me write my books in high school. I just hated it. And all of a sudden I felt like I was praying and God, I had this talent and I just didn't know how to cultivate it. And so I think this writing has been kind of an outlet for me. And it's not just, I don't just write for the sake of, my glory or anything, but to give God glory and also above all, to help people.
Yeah, Paul, what question?
Wow, you're a very interesting character. I was just thinking of when you said you hated this and hated writing in high school. I remember actually paying a girl to write a poem for me in high school, so, and a short story. So yeah, I understand that. so
It's funny,
so tell us about your editing and some of your literary. How do you consult in that industry?
Yeah, so in terms of editing, I used to be the acquisitions editor at Tan Books, which is it's a Catholic publisher. They have some amazing books. Have the bestseller like The Devil and Karl Marx, and that was the former editor did that one, and then I ended up editing the book The Devil and Bella Dodd. Just some really amazing books. A lot of mostly spiritual books, but you get the political ones, and so I've kind of been enjoying that and doing some freelance work. And then in terms of literary agent, that's just something, it's more of a consultant that I call it, but I just, I've been able to publish at so many different, especially Catholic publishers. I've tried to crack to get into doing a secular publisher, but it's very difficult. It's like who but I feel like in the Catholic world, I've been blessed to publish at all different, pretty much every publisher there is. And I know all the editors. And so one of the things I like to do is, if someone, I come up, like when I was an editor at Tan, I'd come up with a lot of the book ideas. And so now it's like, if I meet someone that I think has an idea or they're talented, I go to them and say, hey, would you like to write this book? And, I'll pitch it for you on your behalf. And I've only been doing a little bit of that, but I'm very just fascinated because I see so many roadblocks. As you guys self-publish, and so many people want to get into a publisher, but they just don't know how. And so if I can offer that service, it's kind of commission based, right? You don't get paid until they get the contract.
So what do you see with specifically authors, why they're not getting published? What are publishers looking for, especially not Catholic publishers, but in Christian publishers, more secular?
Yeah, I see in the secular world, unfortunately, publishing has become it's what kind of platform do you have? So it's like if you're known, they're going after celebrities left and right because, they want to make a profit, but the content, there's people that have, you look at some of the best books, and I think there's a lady, The Jesus' Way was like the top Christian book, right? That lady was rejected by a handful of publishers. Even Chicken Soup for the Soul, #1 selling books, were all self-published. So I do think, they're getting rejected because they're not known. They don't have a platform. And so unfortunately, it's like we need agents. We need someone that can go in there and fight for that book.
What are you seeing when you're fighting for that book, especially secular? What are they saying? Number of followers, their social media platform. What can you do for me? Have you self-published this book first, right? And got
Yeah.
sales, those things, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, I've tried even myself, like, right, I wrote a children's book. I was trying to get into like Harper and Collins, Thomas A. Nelson, and I reached out to all these people on LinkedIn, just, hey, would you take a shot? And like, I get very few responses from them. It's almost like the select club, and you can't get in there. And I did pitch one book to a secular one, and it was like shot down. And so it's really, I'm kind of at a loss to how to get in there. I really, unless you like work there, I feel like then you got to weigh in. But I do think that helped me. Like, and I see Paul self-published, like I self-published a couple of my books, and then a couple of publishers picked it up. So that is an option, go and self-publish and go send it to like one of these publishers and say, hey, would you be interested in taking this over?
And you were able to do that with some of your books first self-published and then go to the publisher.
I did, self-publishing, it can cost, if you want to do it well. I did it was 3,000 easily, but I'm sure, there's other people you can use that can reduce that cost. But definitely, it's an expense. But self-publishing, if you have that platform, I've seen it in the Catholic marketplace. Some of these people, there's a guy that wrote this book called Infiltration, Dr. Taylor Marshall. He sold many copies, but his second book, he decided, you know what, I'm going to self-publish it. So people with big time names, they realize, some of the publishers, they're taking a lot of the money, and like, hey, they can sell more copies, make more money. But if you have that platform, you can do that. But if you don't, I recommend trying to go to a publisher.
Okay, Paul, next question.
Wow. As far as the publishing goes, though, that is really a serious problem that we have nowadays. The market has really changed in the last 20 years as far as what publishers will do for you, and how much money that the percentage of royalty that they take, and what's left over for the author, etc. Even the big time guys are running into things like that, where they don't really, for example, they don't really do marketing for you anymore, right? Even if you are published.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's a hard thing, and I was just wondering if you have run into that as well, as that when your publishers, what do they do for you?
Yeah, no, I see it now. It's like, that's why they want these people to have a big Instagram following, because it's like, I think every publisher I've seen in the Catholic publishing world, it's like, if a book is not going to sell 3,000 copies in its first year, they're not going to do that book with you, because they're going to lose money on it. And so they want you to come. I'd say a lot of them, they want you to have some kind of following. They'll also ask you to purchase, if you're with an organization, they want to know how many you're going to purchase ahead of time. And so there's definitely like an investment on your part. And I posted on LinkedIn many months ago. It's true, because, when I was an editor and I would look at our authors and I would say, you have to be the best salesman for your book, because a publisher is going to, after a couple months, your book is gone. They're on to the next book. And you spent all these hours. My wife would joke with me. She's like, why don't you go get a job at Lowe's or something, because you'd make more money than all the hours you spend writing a book. It doesn't, unless you get a home run book. Those royalties will come eventually in your children and grandchildren. It's a blessing, but it's not a whole lot unless it's a home run book. And so there's a lot invested into it. I think people think that you're going to write a book, you're going to become rich and you're going to become famous. And it doesn't really happen, and you see the people that have these books, the majority of people we see that are out there, like the celebrities, they have ghostwriters. They're not even writing their books. And so it's just really, and there's got to be a way that, that for us self-published authors, and to fix this model where it's like, you're only getting like 10% royalties. It's kind of, it's kind of unjust, I would say.
All right. So the best place people can find information on you and purchase your books, Patrick, where can they go?
Yeah, they can go to contemplativeheartpress.com. That was the self-publishing company I started. And in the future, I'm going to have a Patrick R, which is my middle initial, and then O'Hearn.com. So I'm working on getting that website up in the next week or so.
All right, Patrick, we appreciate it. Thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, thank you.
Right.
Thanks, Patrick.
You're listening and watching the Neil Haley Show, and we'll be back in just a moment.